If your new neighbor watches you every day from her window, is she lonely or is she hunting? In the summer of 1992, my family relocated to a remote part of rural Louisiana after my father, Anton, suffered a breakdown. He wasn't always like that. Back in Mississippi, he was a proud farmer, until a powerful hurricane swept through and destroyed our land. The devastation didn't just take our crops and home, it took his will to live. The doctors said he needed a change of scenery. He has to be somewhere far from the wreckage, they said, or he'll never recover. So we sold what little we had left and moved to an old plot of farmland in a place called Red Fern Hollow. The locals called it the Hollow, quiet, secluded, forgotten. Our closest neighbor lived a mile away, an old woman named Alberta. She lived alone in a creaking elevated bungalow that looked like it hadn't been touched since the Great Depression. Every afternoon without fail, I'd catch her watching us from her window, always the same spot, always the same expression, half curious, half something else. At first, I pitied her. I was just a kid, helping my dad with the cattle and crops while my older sister, Emily, ran errands for our mom. Sometimes Alberta would wave at me when I passed by with our ox. Sometimes she'd hand me homemade bread or stew. She had that southern charm, witty, sarcastic, but with a sharp tongue that cut deeper than you expected. Mom got along with her, especially since Mom liked gossip and Alberta seemed to have plenty. One day on my way back from town with fertilizer, Alberta called me over. Her face was unusually tense.
"Don't stay out late, hun," she said, voice low and serious. "And for the love of God, don't take the footbridge path near the creek. If you have to be out late, come by here. I'll walk you home."
I laughed awkwardly. Why, someone bothering folks?
She stared at me, dead-eyed. "Let's just say, some people around here ain't people no more."
I thought she was just being a crazy old lady. Maybe she'd watched too many TV thrillers or read too much Stephen King. I didn't tell my parents. A few days later, it was Emily's turn to go to town. She left before noon but didn't return before sunset. Our parents were too busy to notice at first, but I saw Alberta staring from her window again. She looked worried. That's when I remembered what she'd said. I ran to her place. "My sister's still not back," I said. Alberta didn't speak. She just went to her room and came back with a machete, long, rusted, and deadly sharp. She tied it around her waist like she'd done this before. "Come with me," she barked, storming down the dirt trail. We moved fast. Her house was near the trail fork. Go left and you reach our house. Go right and you end up deeper into the woods. The old wooden footbridge stood between civilization and the wilderness beyond. As we reached the bridge, we saw Emily on the other side, waving, eyes wide. She looked terrified. She ran up to us, breathing hard. Two people, man and a woman, they blocked the path.
I turned around, but somehow they were there again, like they were waiting for me.
Alberta spat into the dirt. "Didn't I tell you? Didn't I warn you?"
She turned to me. "You didn't tell your folks, huh? Good God, boy, you want your sister taken?"
"Taken by who?" I asked. "What's going on?"
"Not who, what," she said. "There are things here, shapeshifters, feeders, Oswong. They smell strangers and your fresh meat."
My blood ran cold. Oswong meant nothing to me then, but I understood one thing. Alberta was scared, not for herself, but for us. We rushed home through the thickening dusk. My father and mother were alarmed to see Alberta marching through our door like she owned the place. "They can't go to town after dark," she insisted. "If you need something, I'll go. These kids are off limits, got it?" My father nodded slowly. Mom looked like she might cry. That night, Alberta didn't leave. She sat on our porch, machete across her lap, eyes fixed on the dark woods. Later that week, she started coming over every day. At dawn, at dusk, always checking on us. I'd walk with her to town, helping her carry supplies. We'd talk, and she'd tell me where the monsters lived. Under trees with purple berries, behind the grove with the wild dogs. She pointed to a giant black cherry tree near her house and said, "They roost up there at night. I see them." I asked why she stared out the window so much. "Waiting," she said, "hoping I won't have to fight them. Again." That night something was off. I couldn't sleep. The air was thick, too warm, like the room was holding its breath. I rolled over and saw Emily standing at the window, barely moving. "What are you doing?" I whispered. She didn't look at me, just slowly reached for the blinds and parted them with shaking fingers. "There's something out there," she whispered. "I hear it near the pig pen. Something's not right." I crawled to the window beside her. The pig pen was lit by a dim yellow bulb, flickering from time to time. Our pigs were squealing, panicked, slamming against the metal gates. Then I saw it. A shape. No, two shapes. Crawling, twitching like insects. Naked. Their skin shimmered wet in the dim light, red and slick like they'd been bathed in oil. One was male, the other, I couldn't tell. Hair down to the waist, crawling like a feral beast. "Stay here," I told Emily. "Wake Mom and Dad. I'll look from the other side." I slid to the far window and opened it just a crack. Then I saw the face. It didn't look human. Its eyes were huge and black, its mouth too wide, twisted in something like a grin or a snarl. It moved with inhuman speed, darting from the pig pen toward the side of our house. Emily grabbed my arm, trembling. "We need to scream. We need to wake them." "No," she whispered. "They'll hear us." We stayed frozen, watching. The creatures began circling the house. Then, click, a light turned on in my parents' room. Dad opened the front door slowly, holding the Magnum he'd bought years ago from a shady cellar in Cebu. He didn't say a word. He just raised the gun, eyes scanning the yard. Mom peeked through the kitchen window. Then, without warning, Alberta stepped out of the dark. She wasn't supposed to be there. But she was, walking calmly into the yard, machete sheathed at her waist, arms raised as if addressing old friends. "You two," she said sternly. "I told you to stay away. I told you not to touch this family." The two figures froze. I could now see them clearly. One stood up straight, the man, tall, bone-thin, his eyes reflecting the porch light like a cat's. The other, long hair, bent forward like she was ready to pounce. "You don't belong here," Alberta continued, voice cracking. "I took you in. I fed you. I treated you like my own." The male stepped closer. "You don't own them." "Leave," Alberta warned. "Or I swear to God." "Or what, old woman?" the female snarled, crouched low like an animal. Then it clicked. They weren't strangers. They were the children she told me about. The abandoned ones. The ones she'd adopted out of pity, and who had left her years ago. They had become monsters. The male lunged. Alberta drew her machete. But before she could swing, a gunshot tore through the air. The man jerked backward, bullet tearing into his neck. Then another shot. Then another. Dad didn't miss. The creature stumbled, screeched, and then fell to the ground, convulsing, black blood leaking into the dirt. The woman hissed and charged, but Alberta threw something from a small leather pouch. A white powder clouded the air. The woman howled in pain, steam rising from her flesh as she disappeared into the trees. Silence, except for Alberta's sobs.
She walked over to the dead creature, knelt beside it. "I loved you like you were mine," she whispered. "But you were never human."
We stood behind her in shock.
Alberta turned to us, face wet with tears. "I should have never taken them in. I thought I could change them, protect them. But monsters don't become people. They just wear skin better."
Dad nodded slowly. "We're grateful. You saved us."
Alberta looked at the woods. "The girl's still out there. I'll deal with her."
The next morning, Alberta and I went to their old shack. It was deep in the woods, hidden so well you'd never know it was there. The land, she said, used to be hers. She gave it to them once. Now she was taking it back. "Gather dry leaves," she told me. "We're burning this place." And we did. By mid-morning, the shack was ash and smoke. My parents arrived, Emily behind them. They hugged Alberta tightly.
"You're not alone anymore," Mom said. "You're family now."
Alberta never saw the girl again. Maybe she ran. Maybe someone or something took care of her. A few months later, Alberta passed away, peacefully, in her sleep. We buried her near the cherry tree, the same one she always watched from her window, the same one where the monsters once roosted. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can still see her face, standing guard with that machete, watching the woods for monsters no one else believed in. If you've ever moved to a quiet town hoping for a fresh start, this story will make you think twice, especially when your only neighbor might not be human anymore. In the early 1990s, my family moved from coastal Louisiana to a quiet farming town on the edge of Missouri after a devastating storm ruined our crops and nearly broke my father. We needed a place far from bad memories, a place where my dad, who was barely holding on to his sanity, could heal. Our new home sat on a wide patch of farmland with thick woods looming beyond. The nearest house was nearly 100 feet away, occupied by an elderly woman everyone called Miss Alberta. The house was old but well kept, and she always seemed to be at her window, just watching. At first, I thought it was just her way of killing time, but over time I began to think she was watching for something, or someone. Miss Alberta took a liking to my family, especially me and my sister Emily. She'd wave when I walked by with our plow horse, sometimes handing me snacks through the fence. Funny, sharp-tongued, and oddly mysterious. She was hard not to like. Then, one afternoon, she called out to me urgently. "Don't be out after dark," she warned, "and don't take the shortcut by the old wooden bridge again." "Why?" I asked, caught off guard. She leaned closer. "Not everyone around here is who they seem. Some folks, they hunt what they can catch. Tell your folks too." I shrugged it off. Honestly, I thought maybe the old lady was a little off. I didn't say a word to my parents. A few days later, Emily went to town to buy fertilizer and didn't come back by sundown. As the sky turned pink and the woods began to darken, I saw Miss Alberta at her window again, looking anxious. I felt a chill. Her words echoed back, "Don't be out after dark." I rushed to her porch. "Emily's not home yet," I said. Miss Alberta grabbed something from inside her house and came out with a long machete strapped to her waist. She didn't say much, just, "Come with me." We walked fast through the narrow trail behind her house that cut through the woods. The area was silent, too silent. Eventually we saw Emily on the far side of the wooden bridge, frantically waving us down. She was crying. "Two people. They blocked the trail. I didn't know what they wanted. I turned back but saw them again at the other path. They were just standing there." Miss Alberta's face twisted with fury. "I told you to warn your parents," she hissed at me. "We're lucky she's still breathing." "What's going on?" I asked, scared now. "Who were they?" The old woman's voice dropped to a whisper. "Aswang," she said. "They're not just stories here. They roam these woods, and they don't like newcomers." She marched us home like a soldier escorting prisoners. My dad met us at the porch, startled at how shaken we looked. Miss Alberta didn't hold back. She told them everything, about the local legends, the danger, and how she believed the creatures had marked us. "But don't worry," she added. "I'll handle them. I always have." She wasn't lying. Every morning after that, Miss Alberta came by to check on us, offer help, or just hang around. One day, I asked her why she kept watching the same tree outside her house, an old duhat tree at the edge of the woods. "That's where they wait," she said. "I've seen them, jumping from branch to branch higher than any human should." "Why don't you scare them off?" She didn't answer right away. Finally she said, "I try, but I think one of them used to live with me." We always thought she was just a lonely old lady. We never expected her darkest secret was watching us too. It was late, sometime after midnight. I woke up to find Emily standing by the window staring out into the dark yard. "I heard something," she whispered. "The pigs are going crazy." I peeked through the blinds and saw two figures crawling low near the pig pen. They weren't walking, more like scuttling, like giant insects. One was male, completely naked, and slick with a red, oily shine. The other had long black hair that covered her face as she slithered through the grass. I wanted to scream. Emily held my hand tightly, her face pale. We saw Dad get up. Quietly he loaded his magnum and slipped into the kitchen, peeking through the small vent window above the sink. Then, she appeared. Miss Alberta. She walked calmly into the yard toward the creatures. She didn't flinch. She didn't run. "I told you to leave them alone!" she shouted at the creatures. "I raised you like you were my own, but you're monsters. You were never mine to keep." One of them, tall, male, grotesque, started toward her. Then bang! My dad fired. The bullet hit the creature right in the neck. It staggered. Miss Alberta threw something, ash and salt maybe. The monster shrieked in agony. The second creature, the female, ran for the woods, never looking back. The male collapsed. Miss Alberta stood over the body, crying, "I thought I could change them. I was wrong." She explained everything. They were the abandoned children of her dead husband, half human, half monster. She took them in out of pity, raised them, tried to love them, but something evil lived in their blood, and now one of them was dead. The next morning she took me into the woods. Together, we burned the hidden shack where the Aswang siblings lived, a dark place, buried in the trees on land she owned. "I should have done this long ago," she said. The remaining creature never returned. A few weeks later, her real children, long estranged, finally came home. They'd stayed away out of fear. But now, knowing the truth, they embraced their mother again. Subscribe for more horrifying stories here in Dark Reel Project. See you on the next video.